Awareness, Campus and Community Outreach, a College and University Recycling Coalition webinar made possible by the generous contribution of the Alcoa Foundation with support from the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education and Keep America Beautiful. My name is Rob Gogan. I'm the Recycling and Waste Manager for Facilities Maintenance Operations at Harvard University, and I'll be your moderator today. This webinar is part of our free KERC technical webinar series, which are designed to provide trends, information, and perspectives about recycling. We're hosting these webinars every other month on the first Thursday from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm pleased to be joined today by three great speakers. Erica Madison, who's the Campus Sustainability Coordinator at Suffolk University, Kay Johnston, who's the Sustainability Coordinator at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and Christina Erickson, who is the Sustainability Director at Champlain College. Today, and we're ready for the agenda slide here, where you're going to see, this is the order of our speakers. But before we begin, I'd like to provide some housekeeping notes about how we'll conduct today's webinar. If you have any technical problems during this webinar, you can call GoToWebinar's customer support line at 800-263-6317. That's 800-263-6317. If you experience sound quality issues, please try hanging up and dialing back in. Because of the size of the audience, and this is a record-setting audience today, well over 300 attendees, then we will be keeping the session in listen-only mode for this reason. All of your lines are muted, but you can submit questions to us at any time using the questions panel on the right side of your screen. Simply click the plus sign next to the word question on your control panel, type in your question, and click send. If you don't see the question mark on your control panel, try clicking on the tools menu on top of the panel, then check the question selection. You can type in a question at any time during the presentation. We'll be sure to get back to you if you have a question that we're not able to address during the program. Any other concerns you might have can be addressed by using the chat function, which is at the bottom of your control panel. Click on the plus sign, type in your chat message, and make sure to send it to the appropriate person by using the pull-down menu at the bottom of the pane. One final housekeeping note, we will be placing the slides and a recording of the webinar on the KERC site as soon as we can, so that you can review the session or share it with your colleagues. Okay, now let's get started. Since 2007, Erica Madison has served as the Campus Sustainability Coordinator at Suffolk University, an urban institution located in downtown Boston. Through this position, Erica works with faculty, staff, students, and vendors to incorporate environmental consciousness into the university's long-term and day-to-day planning and operations. She also collaborates with government entities and community groups on a wide range of environmental topics. Prior to serving as the university's first sustainability coordinator, she worked as its first recycling coordinator, a position the university created after Erica, a graduate student at the time, worked with groups on campus to advocate for the university to expand and improve its fledgling program. Since investing in its sustainability programs, the university has achieved national, state, and local recognition for its dedication to environmentally conscious practices. Erica is also a co-founding member of the Massachusetts Schools Sustainability Coordinators Roundtable, a forum that connects sustainability professionals throughout the Commonwealth to share best practices. Erica, take it away.
Thank you very much, Rob. I'm pleased to be a part of today's webinar, and I hope that the information that all of us share is really useful and inspirational to the people listening in today. Today, I'll be speaking about a data-driven approach to recycling, using past performance to impact future performance. Since starting at Suffolk University in 2006, it has become clear that it is valuable to collect data and provide numerically based feedback to people in order to run an effective recycling program. Next slide, please. Suffolk University was founded in 1906 as a small law school on Beacon Hill in Boston, Massachusetts. While still largely a commuter school, we now have 3 residence halls and house approximately a quarter of our undergraduate students on campus. We have a law school, a College of Arts and Sciences, and a business school. We have approximately 9,500 students and approximately 1,100 employees, so a population of around 1,000 people. Next slide, please. Suffolk University is the epitome of an urban school. You won't find quadrangles or sprawling lawns or acres of parking, but what you will find is buildings old and new, access to the nation's first public park, the Boston Common, and many options for getting around town using the nation's first public transportation system, the MBTA. Next slide, please. Over the past 6 years, Suffolk has started investing in its sustainability initiatives. The efforts we have put in have yielded recognition on the local, state, and national levels, particularly for our progress in the area of resource management. Okay, now next slide. Thank you. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our ongoing efforts that we do pretty much all of the time. And so these are things that are either constantly taking place or things that are annual events that we've been engaged in for quite some time now. Suffolk has a wide range of initiatives to raise awareness and engage our campus in waste reduction and recycling. Some of the key players are myself, the Sustainability Coordinator, working within Facilities Planning and Management, our Director of Facilities Operations, and our Senior Director of Facilities Planning and Management. We have, this year, we had about half a dozen part-time student staff who served as roles like eco-reps, eco-ambassadors, and graduate assistants. We also have their friends. Our students this year were very effective at getting their friends involved, and so that was really a great help as well. And we have a sustainability committee which has members from across campus. So those are some of the most active people in our sustainability initiative. We do also collaborate with a number of groups on campus, such as the peer health educators, the summer orientation leaders, our cleaning company, our dining services provider, and the company that operates our 2 bookstores. One of the ways that we raise awareness among students is we have an eco-rep program that we started a few years ago, through which students are paid with work-study funds to work in the residence hall where they live and serve as an environmental peer educator. This involves working closely with Residence Life and with other groups on campus, and they're really there to serve as a resource for the students who do live in the residence halls along with them. In addition, every summer and in the winter when we have new student orientations, Suffolk Sustainability hosts workshops and informational tables at the orientation events. In recent years, our orientation workshop has become increasingly interactive, and we have led an eco-scavenger hunt of our campus, having students go find things like water bottle filling stations, bike racks, and the like. In addition, we have trash talking at cafes and certain events. This consists of having usually students, oftentimes paid, standing by the receptacles at events and at cafes, and they'll stand by the receptacles and encourage people to reduce waste. They will do things like help people recycle and show people what can be composted. And we have found this to be very effective because even with signage, sometimes people just don't know what goes where. And sometimes they're not really willing to put a lot of time into figuring it out. So having somebody physically standing at the receptacle, serving as a guide, is really effective, and it's been largely well received. So that's something that we are stepping up our efforts in with that area. And then for the buildings that are doing well, we also give positive reinforcement. We give recognition, oftentimes in the form of an email, and that's been very well received. We also will seek to identify why that building is doing so well and how we can try to replicate the results in other buildings. You'll notice on this slide, the bottom picture, that's a photo from one of our annual recycling program appreciation luncheons. This is an initiative I started several years ago upon coming to the university, and it seemed like an important way to recognize the hands-on work that goes into making our recycling program work. And so this is particularly for the cleaning staff, but we also invite sustainability committee members and others who have contributed to the program. And it's an opportunity to reflect on how we're doing, how we can do better, and to recognize the achievements that have been accomplished during that past year. So this is a nice social event and a way to give recognition, and this is an annual event that we do each summer. Next slide, please. So those were ongoing efforts that we engage in constantly, but then we also give an extra helping hand when we notice that buildings are underperforming. And we'll get into how we know when buildings are underperforming in just a moment. So when we notice that buildings need extra attention, either compared to their own past performance or compared to other buildings on campus, we will step up the frequency of our waste audits so that we can get a sense of the types of recyclables that are being thrown away. We then use this information to do targeted education about items that can be recycled. For instance, if we notice that a lot of brown paper bags are being discarded in the trash and do not need to be because they can be recycled, then we might create a very specific slide that shows a picture of a brown paper bag and has our recycling logo and says something really simple like, please remember to recycle empty paper bags. And we will have that run on the TV monitors throughout campus or throughout the building where we saw this taking place. We might also send an email to occupants of that building and let them know and ask them for their help to get the word out to people that this is actually an item that can and should be recycled. We also use the information that we gain to give feedback to building occupants, as I mentioned. For instance, this week I obtained the March 2012 data from our haulers, and this enabled me to see that our residence halls had significantly better recycling rates this April compared compared to last year. And so what I did is I sent an email to Residence Life staff, and I congratulated them on the progress that they had helped to achieve. And this was met with very positive response from those staff, as I'm sure you could expect. And I made sure to copy the person's boss on the email. And so this is the type of thing that you can do for free. It really doesn't take a lot of time, and yet gives that important positive reinforcement to people who have put in an effort and who are serving as stewards for the program. And this is the type of thing that, you know, I think I really encourage all schools to try to do. It makes people feel like their contributions matter, and it's giving them feedback that they might not otherwise have. When we have no sense of how we're doing, it's really hard to set goals or feel good about what we're doing. So this is something that I advise other schools to do. Another way we give feedback is through communicating the results of waste audits. You'll see in the top photo on this slide the results of a waste audit that a student who works with me conducted this semester. We particularly will do waste audits for buildings where we are not seeing as much recycling as we think we ought to be. Even if you do not have the ability to conduct high visibility waste audits that involve many people, you may be able to have a couple of student staff go to select floors of certain buildings, sort through a sample of waste receptacles, and take photos of the items that could have been recycled. This photo can then be shared with building occupants, as I mentioned, to provide a visual message to raise awareness about recycling opportunities. So not only will we put these slides on the TV monitors throughout campus, we might also send an email out to building occupants to try to raise awareness. And in terms of reaching out, when we have a building that is underperforming, we will reach out to the occupants of that building to, first of all, let them know, and then ask for their ideas on how we can improve the recycling rate. It's kind of like if you were trying to improve a recycling rate in a town, you would need to ask people in the houses, their ideas for how to make recycling easier and how to increase recycling and decrease trash. So that's what we do. So we'll go to people where they are in their buildings via email or in another form and ask them their thoughts. Last semester, when we were experiencing a downturn in recycling rates in many of our buildings, my boss, who is the Senior Director of Facilities Planning and Management, advised that we reach out to key administrators to make them aware of the issue and seek their involvement to turn things around. Oftentimes, we don't bring things up to the level of administrators, but in this case, given that there were months in a row of underperformance, we really wanted to try to do something about it, and it seemed necessary to take extra steps. So that's what we felt was called for. And so we did reach out to them and ask for their assistance. And in addition, we convened a brainstorming session to which we invited stakeholders from around campus, including students, faculty, staff, and on-campus vendors. We worked in groups to identify specific barriers, opportunities, and potential action steps. Also, since many of us are engaged in trying to bring about changes in our institutions, I want to mention that we have found it very useful to employ pilot programs. These can be an effective way to put things in motion sooner rather than later, and it can be easier than trying to launch an initiative campus-wide. It gives people a chance to get used to the change gradually and also enables us to collect feedback before deciding to roll out a change building or campus-wide. For instance, our composting program started a few years ago as a pilot program in just one of our industrial kitchens, and semester by semester we were able to roll it out until it encompassed all of our industrial kitchens and some cafe dining spaces as well. Had we tried to roll out the entire program immediately, I really do not expect that that would have worked. There would have been a great amount of resistance and concerns about it, but because we were able to try it out in one location, iron out the wrinkles, and refine things, we were then able to make the case that things were going well and that we should be able to start including more locations. So I would highly recommend thinking about using pilot programs as a tool for advancing change on your campus. Also, a note about the bottom photo you see here, where you see the blue recycling bin with the vertical signage. As an awareness tool, we have found this to be useful. Many of us probably frequently hear the statement that people do not know what is recyclable. So to combat this problem, many of us tend to use signage. However, it can be problematic to have informational signage posted on walls above bins because bins have a tendency to get moved around, and then the signage does not always prove so useful. So what we did as a pilot program in some of our buildings that were underperforming was we purchased these frames that our facility staff mounted to the back of these receptacles, and this provided vertical signage that would stay with the bin. So this has been something that we tried in underperforming buildings, and we have seen an improvement there. So this is something that we recommend looking into as well. You can also see that we try to do very visual signage with lots of images on the left-hand side of the bottom of the slide here. This is our latest attempt, and there have been many, of ways to communicate to people some things that are recyclable that they might not have realized, and also some things that are trash that they might not have realized. These were things that were commonly found in the wrong receptacle, and so we made very specific signage informing people of here are some things you might not have known about how to do recycling at Suffolk. And we've received positive feedback about this type of signage. Next slide, please. So, data is king. We have several steps involved in our process. Number one, you have to get the data. So what we have done is we require in our contracts with our haulers that they will provide us with monthly reports with tons as well as dollars. The drivers then record how much they pick up, and it is converted from a volume to weight conversion. They use a volume to weight conversion to estimate the amount of recyclables, and then the haulers supply us with a report via email every month. And we receive this on the same date every month so that it's consistent and we can plan around it. And also what this does is it provides us with data on a building-by-building basis for the most part, which has been very helpful in terms of understanding where we're doing well, where we're not doing so well, and how to provide feedback in a targeted way. So once you have access to the data, then you need to have something to do with the data. So we set up a system in Excel with some help from some business school faculty members. And we use this, we've revised this over the years, and we use this for tracking the data and entering new data each month. Then, based on the recycling rates that we see, we identify which buildings are doing well and which ones are underperforming. Next, we provide feedback to building occupants to let them know how their building is doing compared to itself over time and compared to other buildings on campus for that same month. We, as I mentioned, provide a pat on the back to occupants of buildings that are doing well, and we seek more involvement from occupants of buildings that are underperforming. With people's involvement, we identify specific barriers and opportunities so we can figure out what steps to take to try to improve, and then we work collaboratively to take measures to improve our recycling rates, such as revising or adding signage. Next slide, please. Here you can see an example of what our tracking looks like. This is not comprehensive. I've left off the dollars for simplicity's sake, but this gives you a sense of what information we include and the format we use for it. Some of these are set up as formulas, for instance, the recycling rate, so that we do not have to redo a formula every time. We can simply paste in the information into the spreadsheet, and then we will automatically see what the recycling rate is for that month for the given building. So here we have the year, the month, the location, the number of tons of trash, and then the number of tons of recyclables broken down by material. Organics would be composting. And then we have our total recycling, and then the recycling rate, which is the ratio of recycling to overall waste output. Now here I've pasted in the January 2011 numbers and the January 2012 numbers. What we'll tend to do is compare the same month to itself over time, because there are holidays and vacations and different populations on campus at different times. For instance, the summer population is different than the population we have during the school year. So it seemed to make sense to us to make sure we were comparing the same month to itself so that it was an apples-to-apples comparison. So that's why we're showing January and January. And we have data going back a few years, so we could look at it over several years. But here you just see these 2 years. And the good news is when you look at the recycling rate column, you can see that largely our buildings are doing better this January than they were in January 2011. So we'll get into why that is, but we have put a lot of effort into trying to get our recycling rates up every year. And when we've seen there have been issues, we've even stepped up our efforts more to try to get back on track. Another thing I recommend doing is setting up filters within your spreadsheet so that you can easily isolate the time frame or area of campus that you want to view without getting inundated by all the other information in the spreadsheet. The data we have and the way we organize it enables us to compare building performance and track against benchmarks, both on an individual building basis and on a campus-wide basis. It is from this data that we discover which buildings are in good shape and which ones need some extra attention. For instance, you can see that we have some buildings that are only recycling in the 30s in terms of recycling rate percentages, and then we have other buildings that are recycling in the 60s. One thing to note is that our residence halls typically have a lower recycling rate than our non-residential buildings. And the bottom building that you see listed there, 73 Tremont, is an administrative building. So there are, demographic differences and use differences among the buildings that play into why you see such fluctuations in the numbers. But given the differences between the buildings, we do want to try to bring the residence halls up closer to the recycling activity that you see taking place in the administrative building. So that's something to note, is that buildings are different, and that plays into why they have different recycling rates, but we want to try to bring the underperformers closer to the buildings that are doing better. Next slide, please. Here you can see big picture tracking by year. So in addition to looking at the data on a building-by-building basis, we also look at the big picture using these types of graphs that show overall campus performance. We started to build up Suffolk's recycling program in 2006. From 2006 to 2010, we made an enormous amount of progress, going from recycling only about 5% of our waste stream to recycling about 45% of our waste stream. And you can see that the lower dark red line on your screen is 2007. I've taken out the previous data so that this wouldn't be too overwhelming to look at, but you can see that on the left-hand side, Suffolk University recycling, the red line was quite low in terms of tons, and then it's kind of gotten higher and higher through the years. The problem is, if you see the orange line where I have the arrows, compared to 2010, our 2011 recycling was really lagging, particularly in the spring and in the fall. So when we saw this, we saw that trash was outpacing recycling, and we were not making the same kind of progress we had been making the previous few years. And this trend indicated that we needed to do something to get things back on track. On the right-hand side, you can see the solid waste discarded as trash graph. And again, you can see that we had a lot of trash going out in 2007, that upper red line, and that it pretty much decreased year by year. And it's interesting to note that our campus has been growing. So we've been adding square footage as we've been opening new residence halls, and we've been adding people, but we were able to bring our trash down substantially. But as you'll notice, we weren't making as much progress in the past couple of years as we had hoped to. Next slide, please. One thing many of us struggle with is how to have recycling bins that are noticeable so that people do not ignore them or treat them like waste receptacles. And here you can see that this is one of the things that we've tried to do to make recycling more visible on campus. We've been trying to make things very high visibility. Here you can see what we invested in, a customized receptacle with 3 sections, one for trash, one for compost, and one for mixed recycling, to accommodate our single-stream recycling program. This is what we have in our one of our high-traffic cafes. We have several of these units, and we put a lot of thought into the design of it based on feedback we were receiving from people. So you'll notice that we have signage up above with pictures and with text in different colors that matches the lids of the receptacles, which are all different. The shapes are different for the openings of the receptacles. We also have a place for people to put their trays, because we had been noticing that people were tending to put trays sometimes on top of recycling bins, which then made it hard to use them. So we wanted to make sure there was an appropriate place for the trays. And then we also have the imagery on the front, which shows people what goes where. So we really tried to make it very clear that this is not just any old waste receptacle, that there are certain places for certain things to go. And so here you can see one of our sustainability committee members serving as a model here, posing for a photo so that we could promote these new receptacles and really get the word out to our campus that we had these new receptacles and that we really wanted people to try to use them properly so that we could reduce our trash output. We received a lot of positive feedback about these receptacles, and while we do not have data that reflects only the cafe performance, we do know that the composting activity for this area of campus has shot up dramatically from 1 to 2.6 tons from last year to this year. And we also know that the recycling rate for this area of campus went from around a quarter recycling rate to over 40% most recently. So we do have good data showing that this area of campus is improving, and in part it could be due to these receptacles, as well as several other steps that we've been taking. We still have our work cut out for ourselves. The recycling rate for that area of campus in April 2009 and 2010 was above 45%, and so we're actually trying on getting closer to 50% for this year. So there's still always more work to be done, but these receptacles have been something useful for us to kind of raise the visibility of recycling on campus. Next slide, please. Here's my contact information. I welcome questions from you, and I hope you'll take a look at our website and maybe even like our page on Facebook. Thank you very much for your time today. And I'm happy to take any questions that there might be at this time.
Erica, I have a question that came in from the audience, and I'm sorry, I hit my disconnect button instead of my mute button, so I'm slow on the draw here. But a question that I know a lot of people have is funding your eco-reps. Is this program funded through housing or through your office?
In terms of funding our student staff, we do that through the financial aid office. So we coordinate with them and we take advantage of work-study funding and also some other financial aid funding that's available so that we can fund our eco-ambassador position, which is slightly higher paid than the eco-rep position. The eco-ambassadors focus on campus-wide initiatives and the eco-reps focus on the buildings they live. So that is where our funding comes from. We do not have any other funding source for paying students. And we did start off with a volunteer program, and then we were able to work things out with financial aid to provide pay to the students. So if that's something that schools are not already doing, I do encourage them to look into that as a possibility.
Great. And Lindsay Silcox is asking, about how many eco-reps do you have per residential population?
In our residence halls, we have give or take 400 people each. So we have 3 residence halls, and our goal was really to have 1 or 2 eco-reps per building. Some of our buildings are really quite spread out in the sense of some of them are more than 15 stories high. And so you could imagine it would be a little difficult to have 1 eco-rep for the entire building. But sometimes we've just had difficulty at getting 2 people to last the whole year, and so we make do with what we can get. Sometimes we only have 1 student per residence hall, working with about 400 students, residents there. But I really have to say that something is better than nothing, and that if you can work closely with your residence life staff, with the resident assistants, and with their supervisors, that you don't need as many eco-reps because you have advocates and you have people who are informed within the residence hall who have influence and who know a lot of people and who are going to be planning events and hosting floor meetings. And so that's really a way of leveraging your ability to have an impact.
Terrific. And another question from Tyler Amy. Why do you think residence halls have a lower recycling rate than academic and administrative buildings?
That is really an excellent question. We have played around with how we do recycling in the residence halls. We've made many changes over the years, and it has resulted in better performance. So that's the good news. I'd be happy to talk more about it offline because I do think it's an in-depth question. But the long and short of it is that the uses of the spaces are different, and the populations are different, and I think it's a really good question that we haven't totally figured out, and I would be curious to hear other people's thoughts on it. But as I said, we have made certain changes that have enabled people to recycle much easier in the residence halls. And I really do feel that it has to be built into the culture of the residence hall. You might have students who never recycled at home, who really have no idea about recycling and certainly don't have any idea about composting. So you really need to make it very clear from the start that this is sort of what happens in the residence halls. This is how you do it. This is who you go to if you have questions. And it's easier said than done. I don't mean to make it sound easy at all. But definitely making it easy physically for people to participate in, and then having that awareness piece, that engagement piece, in conjunction with your residence life staff is really key.
I agree, and I think it's true at just about all the schools I'm aware of, certainly true at my campus. Residence halls have a much lower rate than most of the academic buildings. So it's an area of special, where we have to work especially hard. We have time for one more question from Erica, which is, how did you get your vendor to provide weights building by building? A lot of us are dealing with uncooperative vendors who claim it's impossible to get this data.
Well, I guess I'm living proof that it is not impossible. And I would say that when you are putting things out to bid, when you are putting out your waste hauling to bid, is a really, really important opportunity. And so if you can play a role in that and you can influence what the requirements are like, that's very important. Because if you don't have it in the contract with your haulers that they are going to supply you with monthly data building by building, it might be difficult for you to get. I still don't think it's necessarily impossible, but it might be more of an uphill battle. So my first piece of advice would be, if you can possibly talk with the people or be part of the process to put together the request for proposals for hauling when it comes time for your school to get a new contract, I think that's really essential. But if you are with a hauler right now who you are going to be with for the foreseeable future, I think it's important to probably have an in-person meeting with them. Sometimes, we do a lot via email. We don't even know what people look like. And it can be a little difficult, I think, to get things done when it's such an impersonal process. So I would say invite them to your campus, your account representative, have them come to campus. Maybe you even feed them. And then you express to them really what your program is about, what you are trying to achieve, what your goals are. So our goal is to be recycling half of our waste stream this year. I think we're going to come a little short of it, but at least we have a goal and we're measuring. And hopefully our haulers know what our goal is. And if they don't, they should. So have a conversation, bring them into the process, work on it as partners. And I think, they will understand more and more why it's so important for you to have this data so you can set goals, have benchmarks, participate in competitions, give feedback, and all of the kinds of things that we've been talking about so far today. So I think those would be my two main pieces of advice. But you might have to also talk with them logistically about what kind of truck are they having come to your campus. Why is it so difficult for them to supply you with this information? Maybe they need to make some changes in terms of how they are conducting their pickups at your campus so that they can provide you with what you're looking for. And, there might be some way that they can kind of do some estimates that they hadn't really thought of, that other people hadn't been asking them for, that maybe you can kind of prompt them to start doing. So those would be my basic pieces of advice for how to get this data.
Great. Well, it's all very good advice, Erica. And I thank you very much for your data-driven recycling enhancement strategies.
Thank
you, Rob. Now it's time to switch to the next presenter. Kay Johnston has been working in the environmental field for the past 16 years, and since July of 2010 as the Sustainability Coordinator for the University of Missouri, Kansas City. Her experience is in managing sustainability initiatives, and her research interests include geosciences, sustainability, and public administration. Kay studies complex systems and self-organizing theory. She routinely gives presentations at community meetings in the classroom and presents her research in academic circles regarding sustainability and its impact on behavior and policy. She also was in a webinar this January on recovering organics for composting, sponsored by the EPA. Kay is an active member of Phi Kappa Phi International Honor Society, ASHE, and the Association for Environmental and Engineering Geologists, U-Missouri, Kansas City campus chapter. Kay Johnston, please take it away.
Thank you, Rob. Hello, everybody. Today, I will go over some of our social media and communications. And just to give you a little background, the University of Missouri, Kansas City is an urban campus with roughly 15,000 plus students. In 2007, we hired a half-time, that was me, recycling coordinator, and then quickly became sustainability coordinator on that half-time position as well. And then in 2010 became the full-time sustainability coordinator. Our UMKC sustainability team, and that's how all of our activities on campus really come out of, currently has 140 members across campus. That includes faculty, staff, students, vendors, community members. Our current recycling rate as of 2012 this spring is 78%, and we just did really beef up and add on to our organics recycling. So that gives you a little bit of background. Next slide, please. So social media, that's what we're here to talk about today, has an enormous amount of power. Social media has the power to really connect you with not only your campus, your local community, but the broader community and the global community. And one of the things that's really important is that you get a message out and you get a consistent message, not only to your campus, but also to your larger community. One of the things that we've done here at UMKC is that we have an online brand, and that kind of pulls together all your activities, or should, so that you give people, not only on campus but in the broader community, a large picture of what you're doing and kind of brings everything together. Next slide, please. So there are several components in building your brand. One of the things that we've done, and you notice our tagline, UMKC Sustainability in Action, is that you really need to be able to define your mission. What does your mission? What is your mission? Here at UMKC back in 2007, November of 2007, we always in November set forth our goals for the coming year. Well, then in 2010, we went ahead and put together our long-term mission, also our strategies. So when we started to build our brand, we went back to that mission. You know, what is it? One of the things that UMKC mission is that the UMKC sustainability team aspires to provide a framework for natural resource conservation. That kind of gives you that idea and values. And then also to create your values. And what we do is we do this in a very group setting. So there is silent brainstorming. We use what we call the infinity diagram, where we actually are able to kind of put things into categories, and then a democracy, where everyone gets to vote on their top ideas. Generally, we'll have 3 to 5 ideas that come out in any given session. We do these in 1 hour. It's very critical when you're pulling together faculty, staff, students, vendors, community members, that you really set your meetings to a 1 hour time frame. What happens during that 1 hour time frame is that we are able then to, folks know that when they're coming to the meeting that they're going to be leaving at that 1 hour period. Also, the other piece when connecting your values and your mission is also to look at those annual goals and kind of look where you're going. So when we started really looking at building our brand, we were looking at, okay, what are we going to use here? We've got Facebook opportunity, we've got our website opportunity. We want to be able to have guests be able to post. We also want to be able to look at Twitter and how that might also, you know, be able to bring our blog and all of our notes and everything together. So when you're looking at that, building the brand, that's probably one of the very first foundation items that you really want to look at, and make it special to your campus. All campuses aren't going to be exactly the same. And what you want to do is be able to come out with your brand as a unique feature. Next slide, please. Now, once you've got your ideas and your brand and you've got everything kind of together in that visual format idea, what you're going to want to do then is to meet with your communications and also PR group. One of the things that we've done is closely aligned with the University of Missouri Kansas City Communications Department. They have been an excellent partner with us. In fact, one of the things that they provide us is our artistic design. We had a really unique individual working with us, and we had several people in a group, and we would meet and we would go over all of the ideas that we had about our mission and our values, our goals, what we really wanted to project to the public. And going through that process, you can see on the slide where, we voted, actually, the designer came up with like 5 different concepts. And so then we went back to our team, and our team was able to vote on the design they liked the best. The brainstorming and visioning was so critical to the team, and with the departments that we worked with, kind of working to get their ideas as well and mesh those with the ideas that the team came up with. We also worked with our IS department because there were certain things that needed to be built in to the program. And of course, looking at communications on the whole campus as far as our whole campus, making sure that we look like we fit in to the rest of campus was really important. So I can say this, when you're looking at logo and design, you'll notice ours is the leaf. The design is right there on the screen, and we have UMKC setting right in that. Then we have our sustainability piece, and our colors happen to be blue and gold, and that equals green. Well, that takes us all the way back to 2002, 2003, when we first developed our UMKC recycling program. Students voted on what they wanted the tagline for that to be. And what was interesting when we went through this process is that no one wanted us to get rid of that tagline. In fact, it was pretty much unanimous across the board, staff, faculty, and students. And the design that they chose initially didn't have that tagline, so we ended up adding that back in. So it's really important that people in your campus community become very vested in this process. Next slide, please. Also choosing your platform, what you're going to actually be designing on, and how that's going to be user-friendly. One of the things we look at is free. Every college campus I know is under budget constraints, financial constraints, and so we wanted it to be free, we wanted it to be easy, and we wanted it to be a fairly easy learning curve. One of the things that we chose was to do our website in WordPress. And what makes it so easy is that being a sustainability coordinator, I can go in, and things are always changing on the sustainability front. I can add anytime I want updated information, calendar events, and all that sort of thing, and it's so simple. In addition to that, we have links to go to our Facebook, and then also Twitter we haven't used a lot. I will say that right out front. I haven't quite figured out the use and how we're going to most effectively use that. However, what I will tell you is that it is on the table. We just haven't quite incorporated it fully. One of the things about our website is that our website, we are constantly, I get emails off of that site, I get phone calls off of that site, just making sure that it's very easy for the end user and then also for us. Facebook, again, making sure that those are all interfaced and that they're very easy to use. Want to go on to the next slide, please? So your tagline, we talked a little bit about that. UMKC Sustainability in Action, that is really, really critical in all of the work that, we do. Also being able, to look at those at the different taglines that you might have. You might also individually have some programmatic types of taglines that people really, want to be able to, I guess, connect with. Our blue and gold equal green is really critical for us, as I spoke earlier, because there's so many folks that are, vested in that idea. And so, our recycling program, all of our programs kind of really connect on that level. You want to make sure that you're able to incorporate that campus theme. I know that each campus individually has a whole culture built around what they do and why they do it. And I think that it's really critical to make sure that that is part of this. Also, engaging students in the creative process. We also like to invite our faculty and staff into that. And then, just let your campus choose that tagline. I know that when we worked together with our sustainability team, we came up with, for an example, another small tagline for our education and awareness, and they're called the Green Roos. Of course, the kangaroos are our mascot. So, allowing some of that creativity, I think, is really, really important. Next slide, please. The next component would be your public picture. Sometimes that might be your logo. You might decide that that's going to be the main public picture. But it also might mean, just like in the last presenter slide, she had a lot of action slides. So you might want to have some action photos that are pretty consistent across campus with people doing sustainability activities. You want to make sure that those pictures are real consistent with any of the values that you have. Also, making sure that your colors. Color is a really, really important, and I know every campus has their colors. Ours happen to be blue and gold, and so that gave me a great opportunity with our designer to explore all of those different realms of color. In addition to that, when you're looking at it, you need to make sure that it's easily identified. When someone sees that, they know that that's your campus. When they see it, it looks like they're engaging, that they're going to have fun with it. Something that really makes someone connect at that not just mind level, but also the heart level, because that's how you really get people into action. Next slide. Thank you. So, contact information. This is one of the things that I think most of you probably have had some experience with, is you'll go to a website, or you'll go to a Facebook, or you'll go to any number of different digital media, and there won't be a real person to connect to. One of the things that we wanted to do was make sure that they had a real live person to connect to, someone who was actually going to be responsive, and someone who would be able to field any questions and also send them in the direction that they need if for any reason you're not the point person. I happen to be the point person here at UMKC, and I get calls from all kinds of people all over the community, including campus, and it's just really great to be able to see how people do come to us, and I'm very, very responsive to that. The other piece of it is to be interconnected, kind of know what's going on in each of those fields. We've got a certain thing that we're talking about on our website. You might want to be talking about that also on our Facebook and of course later on Twitter. And making sure that consistency comes together. The other thing that we like to do is empower our team members. Members of our education and awareness team are also have administrative qualities on our Facebook so that they can do posting. We do have a point person, but we also have students. We have work studies. I heard that spoken about earlier. And in addition to that, also our interns. And so we let them be administrators so that they can actually post and keep things going. When you're looking at social media, what it is, it's how many numbers of people that you can actually reach. I'll tell you a little story about that. Back when, I believe it was 2011 in the spring, what we were able to do at UMKC is to have a vote on a bus pass, an all-access bus pass. Well, one of the ways that we needed to do that, because it went out to our general student population to vote, was to get an awareness campaign happening around that issue. What we wanted was to be able to have an all-access bus pass instead of for $50 a month, for $14 a semester. And in order to do that, because it would become part of student fees, we needed the students to be able to vote on that and to do an educated vote. So what we did was we worked together through the Sustainability Office, working with Student Life and Residential Life. We worked with a group of student leadership. And when we did that, what we were able to do is to empower the student leadership on Facebook and other types of media to get the word out. once we were really within 2 weeks of the vote and we really started getting the word out there, we were having anywhere from 15 to 16 to 17,000 hits on our Facebook because of all the activity of these dozen students. So what I can say is that, some people might, and I've heard this, that they would not give admin quality or level to a student. And I say, monitor it. Sure, we had I will tell you this, we had our logo for about 2 hours hijacked on Facebook by some students who weren't happy with the bus pass vote. But I contacted Facebook immediately, and within 2 hours they had it shut down. So I think you have to have a certain level of trust, and it's been very successful. And at this point, we empower our students, and since then I haven't really had any problems at all. In fact, it's kind of neat to see what other people come up with. It's very interactive. The next slide, please. Your voice or your tone. When it comes to social media, websites, and all of that, the one thing that you want to do is to be really inclusive. You don't want to seem like an exclusive membership. You don't want to seem like, it's just a few people. You want to be as inclusive as possible. And you want to set the tone, and from our office, what we like to look at is that we accept everybody where they're at. They don't have to be the top environmentalist. We accept them where they're at, and we bring them along through education and awareness. So having a very accepting tone, making sure it's inclusive, and also making sure that it's a high-level character where you take the high road. The level of emotion, when I talk about emotion, it's generally through color and visuals and things like that, but that it have a really positive emotion to it, and that the color brings it all together and kind of draws you in. That is the way that you get folks to be interactive, where they feel comfortable to contact you, they feel comfortable to post, they feel very comfortable interacting with you. And we really interact with student organizations all over the Midwest, and even I've had some opportunity on both coasts to have some folks get a hold of us. So, being with your voice and your tone, very accepting, I think, is a very good thing on a college campus. Next slide, thank you. Also, in addition to that, your consistency. Repetition for emphasis is not a bad thing. In fact, the more people can see the same message and see that very consistently, the more comfortable they become, the more readily they identify with you. And I think that one of the things that we've noticed is that being repetitious, making sure if you post on one area, you post it on all your areas that you have, all your platforms, making sure that your information is dated, fresh, and regular. And what I mean by that is stale content, people will stop coming and stop visiting. So you need to make sure that daily, sometimes morning and afternoon, sometimes by the hour, depending on what's going on, you'll need to really be connected with that. Also making sure that, it's consistency for your visual identity, and that you kind of always are able to kind of stick that in there so that you're constantly looking at what are you doing here, what am I doing here, and really looking over all platforms. Thank you. Next slide. So then the next thing is our interconnectedness, and all of us know sustainability, that's what it's about. It's about connections, it's about our interconnectedness, it's about how education and awareness can actually change action. And so remember to make those connections, use your logo and everything. One of the things that we did put out, and I try not to have too much printed material, not only because it's expensive, but also because I just don't want the waste out there. But what we have is a postcard. And it really, the only reason we have this postcard is to drive people to our website. So we have this nice display, a tabletop display, 6-foot display, and I have a postcard when we go out on campus to different showings. And so what we want to be able to do is drive people to our website. So what we do with this nice little card, it looks exactly, it has all the logos, it's very much into what we're doing, but it connects everyone with our Facebook and our website. By the way, if you would like to go to our website, it is umkc.edu/sustainability. And again, that's umkc.edu/sustainability. Also, be consistent with your image. Those would be your colors, your tone. And, you know, education and awareness is all about connecting with our audience. So I know that that was a very whirlwind going through some of the ways that we've been really successful with our branding and with our electronic messaging and with our social media. So if you have any questions, I'm very happy to answer any of those or be able to be helpful in any way. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Kay. That was awesome. 15,000 hits on a Facebook page is nothing to sneeze at. Kay, there is a question from the audience with respect to using a separate recycling logo from your sustainability logo. Do you have a separate and distinct recycling logo is the question, I guess?
Well, we do not. We started out with, back in 2002, we started a really comprehensive waste reduction program. At that time, we had a logo with that was student designed and student voted on. When we went with our, in 2010, when we went with our sustainability logo, we actually did away with that old logo. And we brought it forward to sustainability. So now with our waste reduction and recycling, we use our sustainability logo with our green and gold, our blue and gold equal green. So it kind of incorporates that.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you, Kay, very much, but I do want to allow enough time for Christina Erickson. And if we can transition to Christina. Christina is the Sustainability Director at Champlain College in Burlington, Vermont, where she works on integrating sustainability concepts and practices into the operations, academics, and culture of the campus, including starting up an EcoReps program. And I'm glad she's going to be talking about EcoReps because Erica's presentation stirred a hornet's nest of good questions. Prior to Champlain, she ran the ECO program at the University of Vermont as a fellow in the Office of Sustainability for 4 years. Before UVM, she worked as the Sustainability Coordinator at Sterling College in Craftsbury Common, Vermont, where she also taught outdoor education courses. Involved in campus sustainability since her days as a student activist, Christina teaches students to take personal action and to get others engaged. She has a PhD in natural sources with a focus in sustainability education from UVM, an MS from the Audubon Expedition Institute at Lesley University's Ecological Teaching and Learning Program, which focuses on place-based ecological education, and a BA in Environmental Studies and Ecology from St. Lawrence University. So take it away, Christina.
Thank you, Rob, and good afternoon, everyone. So here I am based in Champlain College in Burlington, Vermont. We are a small private school with about 2,000 undergraduate students with a very professional-based curriculum. Our campus has about 44 small buildings, many of which are historic and located in a very residential neighborhood. It's very blended into the hill section of Burlington. We also have approximately 350 employees. We'll move on to the next slide. The program that I run here at Champlain is known as Sustain Champlain, and I'm a typical one-person office on a small campus that I'm sure many of you can relate to. So I'm involved in every which type of project relating to transportation, energy, buildings, some of the academic components, and because we don't have a distinct recycling or waste office, I function that piece as well. We do have a standing committee that's made up of faculty, staff, and students that helps direct the movement of Sustain Champlain. and we've been currently developing our sustainability plan. This year we did start a new EcoReps program, which is something that I've focused a lot of my efforts on in the past few years, including that was the topic of my doctoral research. And so it's exciting to start a program here at Champlain and try and take some of my own lessons to heart. And we'll move on to the next. So these student sustainability educator programs, commonly known as EcoReps, and I'm going to talk really more generally about these types of programs as they are nationally, not so much focus on what's happening here at Champlain. And so these programs have been around over the past decade. The first started at Tufts University, and many have come up building on the efforts that Tufts and others started in the early days. So really looking at shifting student culture and trying to establish those pro-environmental, pro-sustainability behaviors early on, and really training that core group of students to be educators, to be activists, and try to spread that to a broader student body. And we'll move to the next slide, please. So for this purpose, I'm defining these types of student-based programs that are really focused on the sustainability living practices that students themselves have ownership over. They can't really necessarily dictate what type of heating is happening in their buildings, but they can flip switches in certain places. And the programs that I've looked at are most often based in residential buildings, residence halls on campuses. They utilize peer education techniques, are most commonly having a direct relationship or supervised employee or staff member at the campus. So there's that direct relationship, which makes it distinct from other more general student environmental clubs that have been on campuses for several decades. Of course, there have been many expansions of this type of program going into staff EcoRep or staff ambassador programs. There are now programs that are working with off-campus students, Greek chapters, different faith-based groups. It's really exciting to see the different spin-offs that are coming, but I still focus on on the residential-based programs. And we'll go to the next slide, please. So currently there are over 60 active programs, including Suffolk University, as Erica mentioned. And recycling and waste reduction were really the core foundation of why many of these programs started, and they are still very much central to the work that many EcoReps do, just because it is one of the most tangible actions that students have and can take the most control over, about putting what in what bin, certainly. Because I'm interested in lots of things, and programs have expanded to kind of meet those interests, so they really do focus on a wide variety of topics, including water, transportation, conscious consumption, food, etc. And this has been noted as a common strategy for campuses who are engaged with the President's Climate Commitment and through ASHE STARS program. So it is currently a Tier 1 credit that students or that campuses can earn. I think it's up to 5 points if they have these types of programs. We'll go to the next slide, please. So really, over the time that I was working on an EcoReps program myself, but really looking at the variety of programs that exist and have existed over the past decade, I wanted to kind of pull out some of the common themes of best practices that I've seen on the variety of programs. And so really thinking first about how the programs themselves are set up and really designed. First, it's critical to just find out who your audience is and really learn about them. And so in this case, kind of studying the human behavior of traditional college-age students. And those students who were born now, in the early 1990s, which even for me is, I still think of myself as a young person, but I know that's different now. And 1990 seems like just yesterday. So trying to put yourself in the mindset of what 18, 19, 20-year-olds are thinking is important, so you know how to best direct and target your outreach. Building the program acceptance, ideally, if you can get the students who are going to be participating in these programs to help and be engaged in the design, it's best because, you know, it's something designed for and by the students. It's probably going to have the most success. Determining your mission, so really having a clarified mission, and yet one, so you have that task and reach in mind, and yet also a degree of flexibility to it, knowing that things often change. And so trying to be broad yet specific, if that makes sense. And then going back to some of the, certainly a huge point that Kay was mentioning about really marketing and branding your outreach. And so programs have created logos, taglines, all of those things. I've tried to always get my students that whenever we make a poster, the EcoReps logo is visual was very helpful. So a lot of the tasks and ideas that Kay mentioned are certainly relevant to this work. Obtaining human and financial resources, so the physical staff in terms of who is going to coordinate the program. Graduate students are a great option if your campus has graduate programs, because they have perhaps a little more experience than an undergraduate student, and so in the professional working world perhaps, and can help on that level of coordination. And then also having the physical resources, so having an office space, having perhaps a dedicated supply closet. So many of the programs and events that we put on have props and other things, and just having the space to put that stuff is really critical and very helpful. Erica mentioned, and I think it was one of the questions from the audience was about paying students. If you can do, work study is a great option. I've worked it to have it both ways. Of if students have work study, we try to use that. If they don't, we've obtained both at University of Vermont and at Champlain, obtained additional funding through our physical plant or residential life to pay students. And this is minimal. It's usually minimum wage for about 4 hours of work per week. So it doesn't add a huge amount to a budget, and yet to the student it's that much more, and it's a level of accountability that you can turn back to. If they're not doing their work, you don't have to approve their hours and they don't get paid. So that can be helpful. We'll move to the next slide, please. So program implementation, once you've got it designed, you're ready to roll, you need to recruit and hire your students. And using that marketing and branding, again, can really help in that aspect. Once you have the students training, having a specific training day or series of training events over the year, so it's, and we like to often tag on with other student leadership trainings that are going on. Our topic may be slightly different, but the ways and means that they need to get there are very similar. So communication, organizational skills, time management, event planning. It could be the same for resident assistants, other student leaders. So if you can tag on to those, that's really excellent. I have found over the years of running these programs that I think that the students are wanting to kind of ready to run with many of their ideas, and sometimes they are. More often I'm hearing, tell us specifically what you want to do, and then we'll go do it. So having very clear expectations and layers of accountability, and yet, again, some room for flexibility and creativity. You don't want to have something that's so prescribed and generic that it doesn't have the student flavor to it. So it's an interesting balance to try to play with the expectations and specific tasks versus room for creativity and fun. Conducting events and activities, there's, oh, excuse me, can you go back to a slide? Yep, sorry. A number of events and activities that are very common: waste sorts, bulb swaps, film nights, the photo shown by Lehigh University, they were making their own individual room recycling bins. So if you don't have money to buy bins for every residence hall room, why not have a program where students make their own? Documenting your work so that you can, if and when you get the question of, so what have you all been doing, and as Erica pointed out, kind of that data-driven documentation is very beneficial, or for if and when you have to defend your program to either continue funding or other means. Communicating, again, going back to some of the pieces that Kay was touching on, using a website, blog, something for both internal communication, some kind of organizational structure that your students can utilize, to get the posters they need or get, a chat going on between them, and then something that also shows the broader community what you're doing. And collaborating, this has been really, I think, the most fun, and I've seen lots of great examples about working with various departments and programs across campus and really getting beyond the usual suspects. I think one of the more fun collaborations has been student programs working with, or EcoRep programs working with health services or health student peer educators, and combining, or one of the popular programs is known as Do It in the Dark. And so combining a safer sex message with energy conservation. And so, it's an unlikely partnership and yet a really great opportunity. And so there are many examples of that. Now we'll go to the next slide, please. So just as important of designing your program, implementing it, it's also important to look back and evaluating it. It is probably the piece that at the end of the year, you're just trying to get everything in order, get yourself back in order, and yet it's pretty important to make sure that we're checking back to see if we did meet our goals, how we met them, how we want to adapt, and so determining what indicators you are going to use for that, and whether they're campus-wide impacts such as event attendance, visibility of the program, frequency of requests for information. One year I just started tracking how many times I got asked various questions, or how many times my students got asked various questions. So you could say, here's how we were resources for others on campus or off campus as well. Also, really looking at the EcoReps themselves, how many were involved, what was their level of satisfaction. And another fun indicator that I've looked at is alumni of EcoReps programs. What are they doing now? I've seen very frequently them move on to other leadership positions on campus and beyond. So it's pretty exciting to see how these programs can be a stepping stone to other leadership roles. And then establishing your methodology for how you're going to do that. And so perhaps it's a comment section on a website or your Facebook. Perhaps there are surveys that are going out to students or to the Res Life staff, and really getting that feedback, because they're the ones who are going to be seeing these students in action most frequently, either the resident directors or the resident assistants, getting their feedback through focus groups or just informal conversations. And then developing an annual review of the outcomes and just really looking back at those goals that you set out in the beginning in your program design, and did you meet those? If not, how, and how are you going to adjust to kind of meet current campus needs? And we can move to the next slide, please. And I was so excited and honored that ASHE and Campus Ecology decided and worked with me on publishing a much more user-friendly version of my dissertation, which talks about all of these topics in much more depth. And so this came out last month, and this Student Sustainability Educators Guide, a lot of great examples from many campuses across the country, and I really recommend you all downloading it. It's a free download off of National Wildlife Federation's website. The link is there. And we'll move on to the next slide, please. And there are other resources for getting more information include, there's a directory of programs under ASHE's resources site. It is an open directory, so you don't have to be necessarily an ASHE member to access this particular resource. I also co-authored a couple of years ago of another guide with campus ecology called Generation E, Students Leading for a Sustainable Clean Energy Future. There's a lot, while it says energy, there are also a number of items related to waste and waste reduction. And then we've had a couple of webinars through Campus Ecology, again, related to EcoRep type programs. And both of those programs have a lot of students who are actual EcoReps discussing their roles and the successes and challenges that they've had. So those are available as archived webinars as well. And next, on the next slide, we'll see some of the upcoming events. So there's a group proposing, and this usually happens at most of the ASHE gatherings. There's always been an EcoRep, at least one or two EcoRep specific workshops for those who are currently have active programs or those who are establishing programs, and that'll be coming up in October. And then something that's been great in the last 3 years, this will be the third EcoRep Symposium, and this year Brown University is going to be the host in early November. This is really, it's a smaller, but it's again, for the students, by the students type of gathering, and it's a lot of fun, and they really get to interact with each other and see what's happening on each other's campuses and get inspired and know that they are part of something much larger than what's just going on their campus. And I've just seen, you know, a lot of inspiration and motivation come back from those gatherings. So that's, please look for more information, particularly those on the East Coast, coming up in the fall. And that's what I have to offer today. My contact information will be available, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions at this point.
Well, thank you very much, Christina. Congratulations on the recent publication of the EcoRep Guide.
Thank you.
Question for you. Have you ever had any EcoRep alumni come back to Champlain to inspire or inform the current EcoReps and maybe shed light on how their experience as EcoReps in college could lead them down a sustainability education career?
Well, I haven't had that experience at Champlain because we just had our first year of the program this current academic year. But while I was at UVM, that program started in 2004, and so there had been a few years and some years for alumni to come from that program. And yes, there were several occasions for either students who were still on campus or those who had graduated where they came back and just shared what an opportunity being involved in that kind of student leadership position really offered them as a stepping stone to other leadership positions, and where it's taken them, and kind of how that's a piece of the whole puzzle. And I mean, those are the moments that just warm your heart as a program coordinator, to see how even just a tiny little role that you've played in these students moving onward. And we have there was one fabulous example at University of Vermont of a student who went on to become president of the Student Government Association, and then went on to become the youngest state legislator in the state. And she has back, and she's just a superstar. And so it's always exciting to know that she was an EcoRep first.
Oh, I can see that would be extremely gratifying. Another question, Christina. As sustainability coordinators or materials managers, we all wear many hats. It must be challenging to find time to plan, train, supervise your EcoReps. What advice do you have as to how to supervise this crew?
Yeah, it's extremely it's a huge and great question. So at the University of Vermont, for example, my entire role was running the program. So it was a 20-hour position, 20-hour-a-week fellowship position in the Office of Sustainability. It's an ideal situation. I also know it's not the most common situation, but it's, again, those types of opportunities are great if there are graduate students around, to have someone who's really dedicated to that program specifically, again, depending on the size of the program as well. So here at Champlain, I'm doing it in addition to the other pieces, and quickly realized that I wasn't able to give full attention that I had on the prior campus. So this year it worked pretty well. It was a pilot year and lots to learn. One of the things that I learned is that I'm going to be the opportunities that you have students back either for a second year or to bring participating students back in an additional leadership role is a great opportunity. So I have a returning student, and I'm really going to try my best to delegate a lot of administrative tasks that are associated with the program and get her engaged in completing more of those. So I think the more that we can use alumni or returning students into the program, into that kind of next step leadership role, is really a great opportunity for us, because it alleviates one more thing off of our plate, but also for the students because it ultimately gives them excellent work experience.
That sounds like a great suggestion. Christina, what advice would you give to a student, sustainability promoting student, who's trying to approach the administration of their school and convince them to start an EcoRep program?
Well, that's a good one. So as many of you know who have been involved in the original justification was, well, we're going to save the campus money, and in terms of utility reduction, waste savings, et cetera. And to a point, we absolutely, of course, as many of you know, determining those figures is not the easiest thing to do often, and yet when you can do. So for example, this past year we ran, as many campuses do, was enough for me to go to my VP of Finance and say, can I double my program next year, going to 12 students? And he said, well, with that and other stuff that you've been doing, yes, that will work, because we're seeing just a little safe representative of what's happening. So you may not have the fully fledged data sheets that show the exact savings, but if you can give a little snapshot here and there, that is very helpful to those that control budget.
Definitely, I agree, and that kind of underlines Erica's initial point that using data can be very powerful leveraging force your program accepted and promoted.
Absolutely. And too, for students who are promoting this, I hear time and time again from campus administrators that the students really, really want something and they ask it in a constructive way, they're likely going to get it, because these campuses exist for the students. And so if they can build a coalition and a collaboration through their student government association or through other campus organizations and say that this is something that is really going to help the campus in a variety of means, it's a pretty hard thing for administrators to say no to.
I agree. Well, I'd like to thank Christina and both of our other presenters today, Erica and Kay, as well as our sponsor, the Alcoa Foundation, who are sponsoring the entire webinar series, and series partners ASHE and Keep America Beautiful. The next session in the series will be the business of recycling, contracts, pricing, financing, and budgeting on Thursday, July 12th. Thank you, and thanks for recycling.